Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Bluegrass Dreams to Seams. My name is Cheryl, and I know you're already saying, where's that pretty Liberty lawn you were going to make? Well, I pinned that pattern down, and I got a little afraid that maybe I should do a muslin. And I did. And everything's fine except the front. The front looks like it'd be a little short. And I might need to do like some things in the bust. I was just a tad bit afraid to cut $60 worth of fabric without really making a good test garment first out of something a little cheaper. So I have to go to Cincinnati. There is no way I have time to just kind of crash all that in. So I thought, let's make a different garment and save that for after I get back when things are a little more relaxed. And the only thing I got going is a doctor appointment and nothing else, like pressing. So we're going to wait because I don't want to make a mistake in my $60 worth of fabric. So please understand, okay? All right. So I chose to make this here. Now it is a wearable muslin. My problem is there are a few things I don't like about it. Of course, don't we get that in some garments? All right, I am familiar enough with making Burda patterns that I know I have to make certain adjustments right off, and that's when I go to cut the garment. Like this garment is cut at a 18, 20, gradually increasing to a 22 because the skirt's on a 22. Now the reason I increase right in here is I have to have a little bit more room for my bust. Now that 18 on the back and on the pattern, it said finished circumference for bust 44 inches. I thought, well, if they work in the ease, that should fit. The thing is, most older Burda patterns I have discovered opt for a bigger size. You can always narrow it down if it happens to be just a tad bit too big. This fits perfectly in the bust, at least in my opinion. For this style, it fits perfectly in the bust. Not so great right here because this is actually high waist on me, not at the waist. So I need to lengthen that a little bit. This bodice will be lengthened. All right, so let's talk about this pattern. Now this pattern was released in January of 2014. So I don't even know if you could get it anymore, but there's probably similar patterns in Burda. The thing I like about Burda patterns, and this is 6972 by the way, is they do have a lot of detail. Now a lot of times you don't get a lot of choices with them, but this particular garment, there is a dress version and a, I guess, tunic length version. Something nice to wear with jeans. You can see the model right there. She's wearing jeans. And it looks so comfy. I would not recommend cottons. This is seersucker. I picked this fabric up off of Hobby Lobby's sale that they had. Probably spent $15 for this fabric. So that's not bad to make a muslin. And I know enough about Hobby Lobby fabric that sometimes it's not going to last. It's not going to take numerous washings. It's just about, fits right up there, in my opinion, with ready-made clothes. If at certain stores. They're made for a season. That's just the truth of the matter. That's how well that fabric's going to perform. So I thought, just go ahead. It's meant to be a wearable muslin. If I really like the garment, I'll make it again next summer, maybe next spring. So this pattern runs, the one I have, 18 to 30. I used 18 and 20 and 22. Now, I do think there are a bit of things that go wrong in translation. This is a German-based company, and so I'm sure that when they translate it to the different languages, some translation can probably be lost or altered in a way that they don't mean for it to be. And that's fine. I understand all that. That's just the way it is. But you can use, besides cottons, viscose and rayon, things that are very flowy and floaty. And I might like this garment a little bit better had it been in one of those instead of this cotton. I thought this seersucker would look really good, which in my opinion, just looking at it, it looks pretty good. It's got the little puckering in it. You know, I kind of like that. So it was just meant to be bum around town, go to farmer's market, go to the grocery store, wear around the house while I'm sewing, you know, just bum around, casual clothes. And meant obviously to wear more in the fall or spring because I made a long sleeve garment. Now this is their summer collection. This was one of the colors that was in their summer collection at Hobby Lobby. And I like it well enough for this kind of thing. Okay, let's start talking about what I like and don't like about with this garment. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer so you can see one of the details I do like. You see this nice bias neck finish. Now, I like anything cut on the bias, little details like that. I actually will do that deliberately if it doesn't call for that and I know it's going to show. I'm like, oh yeah, let's make this show. That's so pretty. And I was supposed to have the same thing on this as well, this placket, but I didn't get that because I couldn't get that placket to work the way they described in the directions. I tried 4 times, and finally when I ripped it out the 4th time, I realized that if I just don't go ahead and just sew this thing in, I'm going to regret it because it was starting to really fray and it looked like it was stretching a little bit. So I thought, just go ahead and get it on there. So all my nice, pretty bias trim, you can't see, it's on the inside. But it should have been a 1/4 inch, a little bit, you know, further out, like a 1/4 inch, okay? Now, saying that, and knowing how long this piece was all the way around, you might, on that neck piece, want to cut your piece, allow yourself an extra inch at least. I barely had a 1/4 of an inch, somewhere between a 1/4 and 3/8. Barely enough to turn under and give this a nice finish right here on the ends. And you really want it to look nice, right? Sure you do. You want it to look nice. So that's one of my biggest disappointments is I don't have that bias finish showing right here in this V. I don't like these darts. It's one of the first things you do in this pattern, and I didn't really think it was going to bother me that much till I tried the garment on. No. Not my thing. I would much rather have them at the side. I wish that's where they were. Next garment they will, or they'll be done away with completely. There's a center front seam right here. That center front seam right here, they want you to trim that. Well, I highly recommend you don't trim it. I would just press it open and turn under like a 1/4 inch on your raw edges and just stitch that down. And that way they won't ravel and they won't show either because the turned under edge will be facing the wrong side of your bodice to a nice folded edge. Leave it alone. I think that might have been part of my problem because you started a 3/8 inch here and you're supposed to go to this 5/8 inch seam allowance. But even when I did that, when I turned this placket in trying to get that part to show, that just a 1/4 inch was all that was going to show, and then stitch it down right against the seam line, with a stitch line, it wasn't working. Now, just so you understand what I'm talking about, let me get the directions out and just kind of show you what the pictures show. So right here is where these directions are. You're supposed to stitch that in there. You finish this, and then you're going to fold it to where it'll look something like that. And see that little bit right there? Well, that's what caused all this little fold line. Every time I fold it to the inside, I get these little tiny little, just about that long on each side. And I'm like, do I live with this? Or do I take it out and just do this? Well, you see which one I opted for. I opted to go for this. It looks better. It's not the detail I wanted, but it's wearable. Okay, I would like for this bodice to be at least 2 inches longer. And the reason for that is this is hitting me right at my rib cage, and I don't like that. Lower rib cage. It's not a good place to have something with a little more bulk to it, because the seam allowance is pressed upward, and it's not really trimmed. I could trim it. It's not that bulky, but I noticed that it's there. Now, there are a couple of things that changed about the directions, and the reason I did that was to make these sleeves easier to get in. They want you to construct the whole bodice, including side seams, together, then construct the whole skirt with the side seams, and then attach the two. What I did is I constructed front pieces, attached the skirt for the front, then I constructed my entire back together. I put in my sleeves because, see, everything's flat. And I put my sleeves in next. And then I did this long seam right here. I like doing the construction that way because it makes it easier to put the sleeves in. If I make this garment again, I don't think I want the pleats in the front either. They're nice pleats. They're pretty. But on the back, I like the gathering a little better. You also have these nice little waist darts right here, and the gathering all is right in between those two. So I think that if I have time, sometime this summer, I would like to make the dress version. Now the dress version has these little ties right here. I don't want those ties. And I think I'll gather the skirt on, lengthen the bodice, and just give that a go and just kind of see how I like that. Maybe I like that garment a little better than I like this one. This one, I'm 70% happy with it. It's not 100%, so you know what that means? I probably won't reach for this garment when the weather permits. I just don't see me reaching for it. Now, I might surprise myself and actually wear it more than I do, but the problem is that line right there. It bothers me. Everything else I'm happy with. I did think about just sewing on some buttons here. Another thing I need to tell you I did, I knew better than to cut this thing. This is supposed to be here. But I've already sewn on the back side. I've hand stitched that together so that V is hitting me exactly where I want it to hit me when I wear it. So anyway, that's my review on this pattern. Now I did serge all my seams except the shoulder seams. I did a flat felled seam there and everything else because I knew this was just a wearable muslin was my target goal. Just make it one time, see if you like it, and if you do, maybe make it again and see if you still feel the same way or, hey, I made improvements. So we'll see if I get to the dress version, and with those modifications, will it make me fall in love with this pattern? And then I'll know what to do every time I cut it out. All right, on to the next thing. I have started the white shirt. Now the white shirt is incorporating a Riley Blake quilt panel that came out, I don't know when, but anyway, Muppet Sewing Emporium happened to have the panel. It's called Bloom. And it wasn't wide enough for me to cut the back of the shirt. But there were parts of the panel I really like, and there was parts of the panels, of course, I didn't like. So I'm incorporating parts of this panel in this shirt. Worked on the back last night. What you're going to see here toward the end is where I start putting all those thought processes together. I'm taking bits and pieces of something else and I'm putting it with white fabric, doing things with that white fabric. I've got a lot of ideas to try to keep the theme going of the flowers and bees and all that. So I've got several ideas. I call these art shirts. They're just fun shirts for me to wear. This one is being made in particular to wear when I go to the Madison, Wisconsin quilt show. Now I'm going with a friend who's a quilter. I am not a quilter. I do like incorporating little tidbits of things that quilters do into garment making. Sometimes I like to buy things and make bags and that sort of thing with it, but I'm just really not a crafter either. So enjoy, and I will see you when I get back. And I hope you enjoyed this pattern review on 6972 Burda pattern. There it is right there.